Good morning, Conference. As Liberal Democrats, we believe on this vital issue. We are voicing, we believe, what is the mood of the majority of the British people. And we've heard some very eloquent speeches about the shifting objectives and how people have lost confidence about why we are still engaged in this war. We've seen the shifting objectives of war over the 7 years. When we've heard about the initial hunting down Osama bin Laden, that's now gone. Then it was to halt the opium trade. And then it would restore human rights to women and restore democracy. Now we heard recently from the Prime Minister, it's to stop terror attacks on the streets of the UK. That's why our troops have to remain there. We now know that none of these objectives can, or it seems, will be met. We've got a duty to seek a peace settlement to end the 30 years of war and conflict. Besides the cost of our young, brave British soldiers, the human toll of Afghan people is actually quite staggering, and we don't actually hear much about that. It's their country. More than 1 million Afghans have been killed over the last 30 years. 5 million have been forced to leave their country. There are still 3.1 million Afghan refugees, and most of them are in Pakistan, which is now facing the burden of having to accommodate and provide for those refugees. There is no law and order in most of Afghanistan, and it is the world's largest cultivator and supplier of opium. 93% of global opiates from the market come from Afghanistan. And then we've heard from one of our previous speakers how Hamid Karzai's government has passed laws sacrificing women's human rights in exchange for the support of fundamentalists to get himself re-elected. This motion is calling for a clear position. We are not actually calling for a withdrawal. Bob Russell said that he's concerned about the word withdrawal. We're not calling for an immediate withdrawal. But there has to be a peace process before any withdrawal is possible. We cannot have an open-ended war where we fight there in perpetuity. We need to honour those who have died, of course we do, but we need to honour those who risk dying in the future as well. We have a responsibility for that. David Simmons is arguing, saying that we're calling for a tribal government. We're not, David. We're calling for a return to constitutional government in the provinces. And yes, it must be time-limited. Ed made a very powerful case for support of the motion, and he calls for reconciliation. And we're not hearing very much of that, are we? When we hear about Afghanistan, we only hear from military strategists. We need to talk about reconciliation, and of course we have to talk to the Taliban. Liberal Youth wanted it referred back because it doesn't mention Taliban specifically, but of course it will involve that. We need to build consensus. Conference, we want to see a political victory, one that would bring peace for the Afghan people and support Pakistan and India. This is in the UK's best interest. We need diplomacy and a regional negotiated peace settlement to end the 30 years of war and conflict. And as I want to reiterate this because, you know, I understand the Daily Telegraph is saying today that we're the only party calling for an immediate unilateral withdrawal. We are not calling for an immediate unilateral withdrawal. We're not arguing for defeat. We're arguing for peace and a negotiated settlement. Please vote for this motion.